Hi, guys, and welcome back to Oscar Bait, a look at the best winning movies for each of their years. And today we are with Shape of Water, and I'm very curious what bait they used to catch the fish man.
Very clever choice of words.
I mean, actually, that's not so. Hi, if you've not been to this show, we have like a rhythm we go with this show where
Hmm.
we go through the awards that it won, like Best Picture, obviously, Best Production Design, which I can see that a lot,
Yeah, I'd have to look back at just whatever other ones were nominated, but I'll give it that one.
Score,
Yeah, that was the big thing for me,
and then Best Director.
which makes sense. I mean, really, this is a huge issue for me, anyways. In general, with the Best Picture winner, is I don't understand how you can have a Best Director winner and the Best Picture movie be totally different.
Well, so moving forward, I would love, actually, even if they could go back, I want the Academy to have to
Mhm.
do what the Supreme Court does, and they have to write for every movie that wins. They have to write like a not like a dissertation, maybe like a paragraph or something, saying this movie won. Here's why.
Well, I mean, I guess
That's what I think they should do.
it'd be hard though because you got so many people voting. So then your thing would be based off of one person's opinion.
Well, yeah, but that's also what they do for the Supreme Court. Is you have all of them vote, and then one person writes the majority opinion, then one person writes the dissenting opinion.
I guess that makes
I
sense.
think they should do that. I really do, because you texted me when you did finished watching this movie that
Hmm.
you did not think it was the Best Picture winner.
No, my wording for it is that it's worthy of a nomination, so it's worthy of being in that group, but not so much worthy of actually winning. So, like in comparison to the most recent year, the 2019 nominees, I'd say Ford vs Ferrari is very worthy of being nominated, but it's not a Oscar-winning caliber movie.
Okay, I mean, I like it a lot. I don't know. It was also nominated in 2017 to agree or disagree that it should win. And again,
Oh, yeah, because I mean I don't want to get into it too much, but that was actually a very stacked year of movies like Get Out, Dunkirk, I believe was one of them. Ah, shoot,
well, while you're
I'm trying to
looking
think of the
that
other
up,
ones.
if you're looking it up or
Hmm.
thinking, so the reason I think this movie won is kind of like when we get into whenever that is, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to do it if we ever get Lord of the Rings. Whenever we get Lord of the Rings,
Hmm.
is that The Return of the King won. It's a great movie. It won because of the other two movies as well. I
Yeah,
think Del Toro won because it's not just for this movie, but it's kind of like this man has done lots of good work. He needs recognition for that,
yeah,
and this is the movie we
that's
can
what
do it with.
that's what I think it really was because I can't remember if Pan's Labyrinth was nominated for Best Picture. I think it was, but he wasn't nominated for Best Director, or there was some kind of controversy with that,
Or
where it should have
it's
been nominated, or
best
whatever the
foreign
whole
film,
issue
maybe.
was. Well, I think it was. It's not considered a foreign film. I
Really?
don't
Because
think.
it's all in
Hmm.
Spanish.
Oh, I might be wrong then. But that 2017 though. So The Shape of Water won,
Yes.
which is it is what it is. Call Me by Your Name was nominated, which I haven't seen, but I heard a lot of good things about it. Darkest Hour was the one about Winston Churchill.
Which I heard.
Dunkirk.
Which, yeah, that's if any of his were to win. That was not Dark Knight. That one probably should have won.
See, I thought that year Dunkirk could have won for the same reason that I think Del Toro won.
Yes, I agree.
Like, that I could have seen it go either way. Get Out, I think, was my pick though, because I think it's, I don't know. I think maybe because it was Jordan Peele's first movie. It's probably why he didn't
Yeah.
get a win out of that.
That would be so, especially when you have Nolan and Del Toro in that category making not just this one good movie, but they have made tons of hits and great movies out of it.
Yeah. I just think Get Out might be my favorite of all the movies that are nominated, of the ones that I have seen. And I've seen most of them, just not all of them yet. Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, which was the what's
Daniel
his name?
Day-Lewis.
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis.
I only know that.
The Post.
I only know that because when I watched this movie on Amazon, underneath it, like after it finishes up or after you buy it, it had all of those movies underneath it.
Yeah.
The Post is, well, I don't think it should have won. It's good, but it's not that good.
Yeah, that's another movie that's like, it gets nominated. Okay, I understand that, but it can't. I don't see it as a winner. And then 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Which you want to see. I did not hear great things. I'm sure the acting is good, but I did not hear great things about it. This movie won for reasons a lot of movies win, is that it's 50s nostalgia, and it's a movie about movies.
Yeah, it's stylized in a way that I don't know how exactly to explain it. It could be the 50s feel to it, but it's stylized in a way that appeals to your typical kind of, I don't know, Oscar kind of people that you're thinking of in your head. I know that there's a lot more like younger blood in the voting now, but it has that feel of the old, Oscar white bearded
It's a trickle
guys
down.
and all
It's
that
a trickle
stuff.
down thing, right? So that is what kept winning. So that's what they're going to keep making. And people who have, who even if they're new, have seen movies like it win. So oh, this is just that kind of movie. I think it has that same thing. I would even say this movie's closer to Forrest Gump in terms of that kind of production because it's so fantastical. With that fantastical kind of 50s, we do get some race. I guess we get more racism in this movie, more 50s era racism in this movie than we do Forrest Gump. But they're they're present in different ways, though, right?
Yeah, and it's racism, but not your typical kind of racism either. There's also sexism in it too.
Yeah. There's so racism. Much.
Yeah.
So,
anyways, let's just go ahead and get into it then.
So, one thing I did. So, if you had not watched this movie, you should. It's a pretty good movie. I did actually think I was not going to like it because it's all of my least favorite tropes put together. It's the Free Willy story. Gotta save Willy from captivity. Hate those kind of movies. Because it's very, preachy about environment stuff. And, yes, we know, we don't have to keep... And it's also the, let me hide a monster in my house stories and make sure my parents don't find out. Golly gee. It's not that as much, but both of those things, I'm oh my god, this is going to be painful.
See, I feel like there was a better movie that could have came out of it than what we actually got, because it ended up going in the direction that I didn't think it was going to go into, which I guess works for it. But I also think the way that I thought it was going to go might have worked a little bit better.
Yeah.
I figured it was going to be more of her, our main character Eliza, going through the process of teaching this monster how to communicate, and it was going to be more focused on the communicating aspect rather than the trying to take it away or trying to help him escape because monsters are people too, and
humans are the real monsters. We
Yeah,
are the Walking Dead. We are the Walking Dead.
I get the message, but I feel like that's the only thing that's really working for this movie is the message it was trying to get across.
So I'll say, if you don't know, I'm about to do a synopsis. You should know this. But in the movie, Eliza, there's lots of sign language going on. They use ASL, American Sign Language. And I had this real thing of what should I say when I'm writing? Is it they signed? Is it they say? I can see debates on both sides of that from people in the ASL community, right? Could you see that it's our language, we sign, that's our thing? But I can also see we're no different than anybody else. This is how we talk. So I looked it up. I actually did research. And based on Laura Brown, who is an ASL author, she says she uses signed in her books. So that's who I'm using it based on. People can be like, no, that's not true. That's just what I... It was a lot harder to find information on that than you'd think. I scoured Reddit, which I never do because I don't like Reddit. I did all the things. And anyway.
Oh, and I never knew... It took me, I think 15 minutes to get into the movie before I realized that she wasn't deaf. I mean, not that I didn't realize it, but it took about 15 minutes before it was actually, confirmed that she wasn't deaf.
Yeah,
which I thought was really odd.
Yeah, we'll get into it. So credits roll as the camera pans through a flooded apartment as the narrator contemplates how he would tell us the story. He asks us about time, place, or about the woman at the center, a princess without a voice. Or warns that it is a tale of love and loss, and about the monster that destroyed it all. And do you know whose name comes up when he says that line? Michael Shannon's name when he says that line.
Oh.
So it's foreshadowing. Also, this movie sucks because Michael Shannon does not say, I will find him.
That would be
I
good.
will find him.
I do hate
Yeah.
that you just told me the whole narration, and I have no idea. I don't even think I paid attention to the narration. Not that I wasn't paying attention, but just that I think the music, because that was the one thing that I really liked about the movie, was
music
the
is good.
Music choice that they used.
Music is real good.
And I think that was more, it was more distracting, the music was, in a good way, than the actual narration was. Because I didn't, until you just told me, I couldn't even remember what the beginning narration was.
Well, again, I watched this twice, and this one actually took me, I think it's the shortest movie we've done. But it took me the longest to write because this movie's so quick and cuts so quickly that I was kind of like I had to pause it a lot. Water drifts down and the woman awakens to her ringing. I put raining here. I don't know why. She goes about her routine as a movie theater because she lives on top of a movie theater. The movie plays downstairs. In the mirror, we see she has scars on her neck. Which is a very obvious thing to do, but this is also like a fairy tale, so...
Oh, she's not going to turn into a fish.
Well, that's not... Actually, didn't think it was going to go that way. I thought it was just more like she has scars that looks like gills. He's going to have gills. Isn't that something?
I thought that the scars on the neck was just too much for me. As soon as I saw it, I was like, well, that's not obvious enough. Either that she was going to turn into, a fish, or that it was just going to be like, well, if we can't, just make these two connect naturally, we're going to make sure that she connects because she's got scars that look like gills on her neck.
Again, this is all very fairy tale logic in some of it. They do some other stuff later. Actually, in this thing, it's going to explain the plot of the movie to you. So she sets an egg timer and takes a very wet bath.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything on that part.
I was very surprised when I was surprised when Parasite had that scene. I was very surprised when this movie had this scene.
Well, and here's my thing is, it's one thing to put it in there where it makes sense, I guess, to a certain point. But I never once in any of the times that she was doing that did I feel like there was even a reason for it.
Just her time, man. She tears off the calendar to show it's September 18th, cleans her shoes, makes a sandwich, and delivers part of the sandwich to her next-door neighbor, an ad artist, whose name you don't get told until, over an hour in, which is very annoying because I want to wait till we actually learn their names. Apparently, there was a fire at a chocolate factory, and the neighbor says it's both tragedy and delight. Do you get it, Shane? Do you get what the movie's about? It's about tragedy and delight.
No way.
Yeah, I like how it sets it up already. I actually do like that. I'm being kind of cheesy with it, but I do like it. The neighbor says he would waste away without the woman. They then watch some impressive dancing in a Shirley Temple movie. The woman tries to tap dance herself and is proud. She exits the theater when the owner calls her Eliza and says to watch the movie because no one is coming into his movie theater. Eliza looks at shoes in the window before sitting down next to a fat guy with a piece of cake for some reason. I think it's just funny. She rests her head on the bus window and gets off at the OCCAM research facility. She goes down with her where her friend calls her over to clock in. The new woman and Eliza work as janitors, and the new woman talks about her husband Brewster and how she makes him food, but she gets nothing out of it. They enter a water.
That's about right.
Yeah. Well, for their relationship, it is anyway.
Well, yeah, the time period too.
They enter a water tank facility and start cleaning up the mess. Their boss, Mr. Fleming, calls the new woman Zelda. Fleming says that they got a new doctor, Dr. Hofstadler, and a new asset. The door in the tank lab opens up and a large water container enters, along with a man in a black hat and trench coat and a staff that we will find out later is a cattle prod. Eliza and Zelda finish cleaning. Eliza hears a noise and checks out the tank. She puts her hand on the tank only for a webbed hand to slap back. The women are then escorted out as the asset makes a ruckus. That's a good scene. I did forget the... yeah?
I was just saying, up to this point, it wasn't too bad. I'm going to wait a little bit till I make a complaint about Eliza, but go ahead.
I would just say I forgot Dr. Hofstadler existed. I objectively forgot he was in this movie until he became important, and then I was like, was he here before? I know they mentioned it, but then it took a second time to be like, oh, that's who he's talking about.
Yeah.
He wasn't center in the frame, so I didn't know who he was talking about. I say that like that's a problem with the movie. I just wasn't paying attention.
It is.
Well, is it though? If I wasn't paying attention, is it really the movie's fault?
I guess not.
How much should I be handheld in the movie, and how much should I, be paying attention on my own, like an adult?
I don't know. This movie so far is doing a good job at hand holding. Not to get on it too much, and not to say like hand holding, but really kind of making sure you know what this movie is and where it's going.
Eliza returns home and is driven to a pie place with her neighbor. The neighbor debates what kind of tantalizing pies there are, but is looking at the guy working the cash register, which I noticed a second time, so it's not just coming out of nowhere. The neighbor...
It felt like it came out of nowhere when I watched it.
The neighbor... who has a neighbor, again, we're not told till much, much later, talks to the cashier about franchising while Eliza affords a napkin. It came out of nowhere, you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, maybe because you might have thought it on your first watch that it just came out of nowhere. Like, I don't know. I just didn't feel like there was any setup, or I don't even want to say setup. Like, when I saw it, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, so that's the kind of person he is. Not that that's bad, but, like, it just was there.
Again, this is the, I guess, hand-holding versus us paying attention versus being too subtle kind of debate going on. Now that I know what to look for watching it a second time, I was like, oh, okay, so it's here. He's talking about something out of your grasp. He's looking at a guy. We know where that's going. There it is. They eat pie at the neighbor's apartment. The neighbor talks about the cashier and says the pie is sordid, which not good, which is funny because Eliza does not like it. So he puts it away in the refrigerator that is filled with pies.
Which never comes back into play in the story at all. I wanted to
It's
know more about that.
it's more, I think, that he does not like the pies, but he goes because he likes the person.
Yeah, but they all looked like the same exact pie.
Because they are the
the
same
fridge.
exact pie. It is that key lime pie.
But if he wants to go see him, why not just get a different pie every time until he finds one that he likes?
I don't know. Because we're not.
I'm thinking too much into it now.
Yeah, that's not really. That's like when you read my thing and you're asking questions that's not important to the story. Eliza has puts it on a race, like a race politics, like about not lynching, but like police spraying water on black people, and the neighbor hates it, and so she switches it to a musical. The neighbor says he would tell himself to take care of his teeth and have more sex when he was younger, and then they tap to the music. Another day for Eliza comes. She repeats her routine. While in the bathroom cleaning, this is at work, Zelda mentions how the brightest minds still pee on the floor and get the splash zone up in the ceiling, which is very funny.
Yeah, I've never managed that before.
Zelda goes in on Brewster, who hits the can 7% of the time. Then, General Zod comes in with his cattle prod, because we don't know his name yet. He washes his hands and then pees, which is a bold choice.
Very weird.
Zelda tells Eliza to clean. Zod says it's a cattle prod and that he's Strickland from security, and washes his hands either before or after, but both shows a weakness in character. He leaves, but also leaves blood on the counter that you can see from the second he puts the cattle prod down. It's been there the whole time. Then he has a piece of candy, green candy, that I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I don't know either. It was just
Well,
candy.
it's important later, so I wish I kind of knew what kind of candy it was. What's not actually important, we'll get to it. Zelda says short people are mean while they clean the trash cans in the hallway. They stop when they hear a bunch of screaming. The door to the lab opens and Strickland comes stumbling out. He's down, 2 fingers and bleeding profusely. At dinner.
That was probably my...
Yeah?
Okay.
No, you can...
I was just going to say my favorite part, I think, of the whole movie is Strickland and his 2 fingers.
Well, yeah, and that's actually one of the things that I know he's saying something with the 2 fingers, like Del Toro and his co-writer, but I can't figure out what it is.
I don't know. I just love seeing every scene from then when he loses them to the very end. We'll get to that, but every time we saw him with his fingers was funny.
At dinner, Zelda mentions that the meatloaf would kill any commie who entered the building, who entered the premises, which is funny because there are communists there and we don't know that yet. Fleming forces Zelda and Eliza, you didn't get to say anything, to go to the lab and clean up the bloody mess in 20 minutes. Zelda says she can handle a lot of things, but blood does something to her. Eliza splashes water on the ground to reveal 2 fingers in a ring. Zelda runs to get Fleming while Eliza bags them. She then sees a standing tank and a creature swimming inside. She goes up to a tank and Abe Sapien comes out.
Oh, no.
Which, yeah, so he's not actually given a name. And I feel like calling him the asset is kind of playing into what the movie's talking about. So, Doug Jones is the actor for the Fishman. And he also played Abe Sapien in the Del Toro Hellboy movies.
Oh, I just called him the... What did I say? I think the water creature or something like that.
On Amazon, when you do the X-ray, it says he's the creature from the Black Lagoon. That's what it says his name is.
Just call him Creature.
But I call him Abe Sapien because that's who he reminds me of, and it's the same actor, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's easier to write Abe when I'm taking my notes as the movie's going.
Mm-hmm.
And he's bleeding. The door opens, and he swims away. Fleming asks for the body parts, and Eliza hands her the paper bag. Cut to later, the neighbor says he believes Eliza that whatever is in there is alive. But also mentions that it could be, he said he saw a mermaid that was a monkey with a fishtail. Kind of that old
Actually,
trick.
yeah.
Go
ahead. After this,
that's flimflammery.
Yeah, after this scene, I'll tell you something. Go ahead.
The neighbor says cornflakes were created to stop masturbation, which I just wrote because it's funny. And that doesn't work. That they didn't work.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was funny because she looked at her cornflakes too for a second, but then he was like, but it doesn't work. And then she kept on eating them.
They flip on TV where he shows like his Jello ad that he's doing. And the neighbor says that once he gets paid, they'll go out and get pies. Or, well, he'll get pies. While Eliza gets whatever she wants. Eliza watches TV where we get the person on TV singing "You'll Never Know How Much I Missed You and How Much I Care." So that's setting that up. That doesn't come out of nowhere. The neighbors told...
Yep, hits you in the head.
I mean, not really. Because we don't know that yet. I mean, you don't know that she's going to do that.
Subtly.
The neighbors told that the Jello has to be green and to have a happier family. He is told that the executives wanted a photo, but he sold him on a painting. The neighbor says that's one of his bests. The manager, Bernie, because we get his name in this scene, but we don't get the actual neighbor's name in this scene. Oh, God. Well, it's only annoying because I knew his name, and I didn't want to write it, because I wanted to wait. Just because you had to have to wait.
Well, it's also like a screenwriting thing. So Del Toro wrote it
With a partner.
If you're looking at the screenplay, it's gonna have his name on there. But I feel like if Del Toro didn't write it and he was directing it and he was reading it, he would probably notice that he never once says the name up until an hour into the movie. But because he was writing it also, and his name's gonna be there for every bit of dialogue he has from start to finish, he probably didn't even notice.
Maybe. Yeah, that's like a real. So we don't know Eliza's name until someone outside says her name. So it's not gonna. It's trying to be real good with exposition and not be like, "Hi, Eliza, how are you, my best neighbor friend?" It's trying to do that whole thing. Bernie asks how he's holding up, and that the neighbor was asked to leave over a drinking problem, but wants his job back. This whole subplot. We only get 2 scenes. I don't know what's going on in those scenes. I get the ad bit that I understand, but all of the other stuff I don't understand. I guess because it's so vague that I can't really figure out what's supposed to be said. Mm-hmm. Eliza walks down to the lab with her bagged lunch. She goes to the standing tube, but then she hears the chains by the big tank. I guess it's more of a pool thing, isn't it? She goes to the pool where the chains are rattling about. Eliza cracks an egg. Abe pops his head up to take a look. Cut that out.
Yum.
I guess I'll have to. Dang it, I don't know what's going to be in the edit. Dang it. Anyway.
I'll mark it down. I got the time.
Eliza shows the egg and eats it. Abe moves closer and stands up. And he looked very menacing. Like it's a good shot, him standing up. Mm-hmm. Eliza presents the egg. Abe hisses loudly. Eliza holds the egg and places it on the edge before signing the word egg. Abe takes the egg and dives into the water. Eliza stumbles out just to run into Zelda, who says Strickland wants to see them.
Okay, I got 2 issues with that scene. One is if you were a government facility, which I'm assuming that research facility, whatever you want to call it.
It is, because we know that Strickland has a general boss. A boss who is a general in the military, not just a general boss.
Well, it'd be one thing if it was just just something engineering-wise, whatever. But you've got a humanoid fish, sea creature thing, and you have nobody standing guard, either outside or inside. Even if you had the cleaning people, I would still have somebody on guard. I don't understand how I know it's a movie, but I felt like that was a real issue with me, that it was too easy for her to just walk in there and do what she wanted to do.
Yeah, that's one of those. That's, I think, I mean, you also have to accept that, fishermen are real, I guess. But that's, I guess, the only other thing in this movie, which it doesn't really go on as long as you think with that, other than because it's like subverted a couple times.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to harp on it too much and take the movie down just because of that, but it doesn't matter what kind of movie it is. I would just automatically suspect that that was a little odd, and that it would pull me out of the movie just a little bit, because something like that, it wouldn't make sense to not have really good security.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even that hard to write around, because she's a cleaning lady. She can just go in there to clean. It's not that difficult.
But, and then the other thing is, maybe I just didn't notice when I first watched the movie, but I don't understand her motivation.
She
is it just that
sees the creature in pain and wants to, I guess, help it?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part, but I don't know.
I guess it's again one of those fairy tale kind of logic things. I guess is what's supposed to be.
Yeah, because I just feel like normally in a situation like this, you would have some kind of connective tissue that leads to the motivation. But in this case, it just feels like she just wants to help him just because.
I mean, we get further motivation later on, but I guess it's not... Because again, it's not trying to beat you over the head with exposition. So we do find out her motivation.
Well, I guess when we get closer to the end, I'll tell you my thought of what the motivation seems like. But I'll wait till we get closer to the end for that.
Strickland asks how long the two have known each other, and makes a racially charged comment about how it's odd for Zelda to be a single child, not to have any siblings. Because that's what he does. He's like,
yeah, that's
don't
funny.
people don't you people or your people or some comment like that.
Yeah,
it's good subtle racism. Not beating you over the head with he's racist. Zelda says her mom died after she was born, and that Zelda, her name is Zelda D for Delilah, and Zelda for the Legend of. That's not true. Anyway, Delilah
funny,
from the Bible, and who was the traitor of Samson, which is going to come back later. We find out Eliza's last name is Esposito, which means orphan, and that she was orphaned and found by a river where her fingers were, not her fingers, I was just reading ahead, where her voice box was damaged, like she was cut to made mute or something. Eliza returns Strickland's fingers, returns the ring, and sees that they rebuilt his fingers from the tendons, but that they might not stick. He does make a comment about how there was mustard on him, which is funny. And then, mentioned scars, voice box damage when she was a baby. Strickland says the lab is home to an affront from South America, and says I was not created in the Lord's image. He then says that the Lord probably looks more like him than Zelda, so more racism. He finishes his green candy before having some of his antibiotics. I think I just put that there because the green candy is important. I don't think it's really in that order. The phone rings.
Antibiotics, more like pain pills.
Well, we don't really know. The phone rings and he ushers them out. It is General Hoyt. And Strickland says that he has the 3 important fingers still left. And that they need to decide what to do about the asset.
It's a really funny line.
My trigger, and I can't, that's the only one I only remember his trigger finger. That's the only one I can remember. Anyway, it's not important.
Oh, man.
In the lab, Abe signs egg over the shell. Strickland is dropped at home, where the radio says that they're in Baltimore. Isn't it great this long into the movie to find out where your movie's set? Again, it's not a problem. It's just, I say that, I don't know where Parasite is set other than South Korea.
Baltimore. I was expecting them to say Neverland.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter. He's not a lost boy. Strickland is working home by his kids and gets an omelet from his wife. His son asks if they're going to have jetpacks in the future. Strickland says that it is America. The wife, which I guess is more saying that because we're not in space yet, we know that we know we're not in space yet. So, which is important. His wife tells him to eat and then clean his hands real good, and she'll be upstairs. The wife, Elaine. By the way, we know that his wife's name before we know the next door neighbor's name. Can you believe that?
There's a lot of names we know before him.
I mean, again, that's not like really a problem because you don't really need to know his name when you're watching the movie. But when I'm here writing this, it's very difficult. Anyway, says that she likes it here, but Strickland says it is still Baltimore, and I just now realized that Strickland's his last name.
Do we know his first name?
I don't know. I just realized, I was like, wait, why is Strickland's usually... Anyway, it's not important. Again. But Strickland hates it and says he wants to buy a new car, and Elaine mentions getting a Cadillac as she lets him fondle her.
It's a very
weird,
subtle choice of words.
I'm trying to be good. They are having sex when his hand starts bleeding, and he covers Elaine's mouth and says that he doesn't want her to talk, which I think, because we also find out later that he also has a thing for Eliza. So I think it's kind of playing on that. So it's setting that up here, but I think it's also trying to do like the women shall not speak, or like a very 50s women are to be seen and not heard, like kids. I think it's doing that.
I assume there was a connection between it, like that scene and Eliza, but I never once like really felt like if he was supposed to have a thing for Eliza, like that kind of thing for her, it was never really expressed that well. And then I just outside of trying to make a connection, I never understood the point of that scene at all.
So it's doing that. So it's setting up that kind of idea, I guess. Yeah. And which I get, the thing with him liking Eliza is I think more of like a thematic thing of he can like this person that can't speak and maybe can only make noises, but he doesn't like the other thing that can't speak and only makes noises. It's kind of like that. The movie does a better version of what it's saying with all of this, and I'll bring it up because I really like the scene and it's so brief that you don't even think about it. Eliza finishes sweeping up the lab. Hofstadler leaves as well. Eliza takes out a a record player, and an egg. She starts playing the music and enjoying her lunch. Abe takes the egg and swims away. She stops the music. Abe comes up and looks at the record player. Eliza signs music. They bond over the music, and Abe seems to like it. Abe eats the egg whole, which is very confusing because he saw the egg without the skin, and I would imagine the shell, rather. And I'd imagine, like, if I was him, I'd be like, well, why does it have the shell on now? Why didn't you take it off? What's the problem with the shell?
Yeah, he's supposed to be intelligent, right? Like, he would have at least probably tried to crack it open.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter. Because we find out he's, like, representative, like, as a god in South America. Which that's a good scene, too, that we're going to get to. Cut to Eliza looking at the water longingly at home, and then boiling half a dozen eggs, and picking out. It basically is now a montage of her looking at the water longingly, because she sees him in everything, like the ending narration happily tells us.
No.
Anyway, boiling egg, picking out different albums for Abe, and Zelda notices Eliza's attitude change. Eliza dances in front of Abe, all while Hofstadler watches them bond. And I forgot, again, who he was the first time I watched it. So this reveal coming up, I was like, who cares? We never saw that guy before. And I was like, oh, wait, we did. I was just being dumb. Hofstadler goes home, opens a secret floorboard, and takes out blueprints. He goes to a factory where he gets out, and they exchange code words to reveal he is a communist. He's a commie. He's a dirty Russian. They go to a fancy Indian restaurant. I assume it's Indian because that's what that mural on the back looked like. But doesn't really matter. Hofstetler, real name Dmitri, comments on how he hates sitting at that plant for an hour and coming to the restaurant. Dmitri shows his notes on Abe and blueprints of the lab for an extraction that should be done as soon as possible. His handler, Dmitri says Abe can communicate and is intelligent enough to even respond to music. He tells his boss to consider it. His boss tells him to eat their meal of surf and turf, which is only important. It says the lobsters were boiled on site, that they squeak, but are soft and sweet. I wonder what it's talking about as it cuts to Eliza.
Oh no.
I wonder if that's not just again, I'm making fun of it, but I actually don't hate it. It's very...
You're doing the sarcasm, but you don't... I don't hate it, but you like it more than I do. But when you do that sarcasm, it's more of how I actually felt while watching it most of the time.
Yeah, I don't... I really like it. It's one of those kind of... I don't know. I wouldn't say this is how I would make a movie, but this is kind of how my brain thinks, which is why I like it.
Not that I don't like it, but like I said, all those sarcastic moments are moments when I was watching it going, oh, yay. Of course that's happening.
Well, because it's trying... And hey, look, they're talking about a fish, too. Or, well, I guess it's a crustacean. It's not technically but it's talking about a sea creature, too. And it's pairing that idea. And I know you hate that, but I'm see, look how smart this movie is. Well, I don't know if it's...
Well, I mean,
anyway.
I understand what it's doing. It just wasn't... I don't think it was as clever as it was trying to be.
Strickland sees Eliza clock in. They drop off laundry at the cleaner, laundry in a cleaning truck at the loading dock. At the dock, they bum a cigarette from Dwayne, a cook, whose name was mentioned earlier, but I did not say. He is the one whose meatloaf could kill Russians. Eliza looks at the camera, but Dwayne says they push it up at break time and that spot they're in is a blind area. It's a blind spot. Which I like.
That's convenient.
Well, yes, and if it's going to be a heist movie and you don't want it to be very obvious, I think it's pretty good. I think that's a good, it's giving you that information without, in a way that is not, and here is where we're going. See, the cameras don't come over here, so we can go this way. It's not doing that thing. It's look at this just normal thing, and it's not a dumb thing. The people were dumb for the people who built the facility were dumb for doing that.
Yeah.
They didn't know that was gonna happen.
Yeah.
Eliza sneaks in to see Abe chained and injured. See, we only have that montage of her just going in randomly. She drops the egg and hears Strickland come in. She grabs her bag of food and hides. Strickland returns with his candy and then torments Abe and says he hates Abe's screeching noises. But then we'll later...
Oh, who does that sound like?
I don't know.
Oh, well, he also... Well, I guess I don't know if he hates it, but he says that Eliza makes those noises, or that he can make her make those noises, whatever it was.
That's more that, kind of sexual. I guess it's kind of the things you love and the things you hate are so closely intertwined. I guess it's that.
Because I think he called it the squeaking and squawking or something like that.
He accidentally kicks the egg. He picks it up and looks at it. Zelda sees Eliza's cut outside the lab and calls for her just as General Hoyt drives by and enters the lab. Hoyt looks at Abe. Strickland says that Abe was worshipped as a god by South Americans, and Hoyt says that they are savages. There you go. I like that line because they're not really savages, and we find out he does have powers.
Yeah.
Hofstadter,
which later confuses me a lot, but we'll get into that.
Well, we don't know. We really don't understand his powers. That's not a point of the movie.
Yeah.
Something else that you might have read, Shane. You personally have read.
What's that?
Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. No, I got you.
Again, I'm just being sarcastic. It's fine. No one else knows what we're talking about, which is sad.
I know what you're talking about now, though.
Don't you just love referencing your own stuff on other people's things that no one else can even access? It's great. Hofstadter reveals that Abe can breathe through 2 sets of lungs, and that they will need that skill in order to get to the moon, since they already let the commies send a dog and a man up. And because this movie is also very, what can I think, Twilight Zone-ish.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode of Twilight Zone, which you have not, which I don't know if you've seen, but is amazing.
The new one or the original?
The original.
I think I've seen it, but I think I watched it in like middle school one time because my teacher put it on TV.
The very first episode, at least what Netflix says is the very first episode, is a man like stuck alone in basically like a city with nobody else. Who wakes up and he's all alone. And the reveal is that it's training to go to the moon, and that you're going to have to be able to withstand that kind of like loneliness and stuff. It's really cool and clever. And just talking about trying to get to the moon reminded me of that. Hoyt says that they know the commies want it. Hofstadter, which I only call him that when he is with the Americans, because he's kind of playing 2 different people, really.
Yeah.
Sees Eliza and notices that Abe is seizing up. Strickland jokes about about Hofstadter's love, and that they should just vivisect Abe. Abe passes out, so they put him in the tank. Hofstadter says that they cannot kill the creature, and Hoyt says he can do whatever he wants. He will listen to his argument, but that's it. Eliza races out in the opening that she can get to exit the room, and sees Hofstadter riding out. She follows them to the command room where she watches where she sees that they are like pleading the case for Abe, and then loses. Strickland and Hoyt leave, and Hoyt says that to dissect him, and then they just all leave. So now we got a ticking time thing going on here. Which at this point, if you
to set up the main event.
Yeah, which at this point, if you don't know that they're going to rescue us, should be pretty obvious that they are going to do it.
Come on now. They didn't make it that obvious.
I'm saying at this point
the
they would have, though. If you were like kind of not watching the movie, if you're like, well, I thought this was Creature from the Black Lagoon. Why isn't he in the lagoon? That's black. Eliza, it doesn't matter. Eliza says that they need to break him out to the neighbor. The neighbor says that is breaking the law. This leads to an argument between Eliza and the neighbor, where Eliza signs that he is all alone, the loneliest thing she has ever saw, and the neighbor notes how she signed it as a thing, kind of using that sort of language.
This is probably my favorite scene in the whole movie.
This leads to Eliza forcing the neighbor to repeat everything she signs. Yes, it is good. She signs that, what is she? She moves her mouth but can't make noise, and so what does that make her? She also signs how Abe does not see what she is lacking or how she is incomplete, and signs that Abe sees her, and she can tell that he is just happy to see her. She signs that they could save him or let him die. The neighbor leaves to deliver the ad, and says that Abe isn't human. Eliza bangs on the wall, and because you can't yell at somebody, which is good, because I could see that scene going really badly if she was yelling this, but because it's sign language, it feels really subtle. Well, she says if they don't save him, that they are also not human, and it is a good scene. And now that you get her motivation, really.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess we get why she's doing it, but I don't know. I never feel once like it really worked for me that well, other than to just, I don't know, other than just that's what the script asked for.
Bunny finally calls the neighbor Giles. Woo! Which, it's a good thing they're toward this, because you haven't watched Buffy yet, but when we watch Buffy, the mentor figure, and that is called Giles, and they're spelled the same way. So you always kind of need to know.
Giles and
Because
Giles.
they're spelled the exact same. It's one of the... Yeah. It's like, if you ever, like, live and live, you read those right next to each other, which one is it? Read or read? It's one of those.
George and Jorge.
Jorge has a J in it.
I've seen George with the Jorge.
Really? I have not seen that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think I've seen it before. Maybe his name was Jorge. I don't know now.
Giles goes over and they have an argument where Bernie says that's not a good time and that he should have mailed it in. Again, I don't know what's going on here. Giles says...
Yeah, I didn't really care for what was going on
this
with
is
that.
like the one part where I'm like, it's a good movie. You can cut all of this out. I don't know what's going on. It's not clear enough what's going on. He says it's his best work. And Giles asks when it would be a good time. He grabs the art and leaves to go to the pie diner. The cashier says that his artwork is good. He gives him a free pie, and the cashier says he likes talking. They like talking because he's smart. He seems educated. Giles says that they have a good conversation, and that Eliza is not much of a conversationalist. Which, if they were not friends, would sound mean, I'm sure. The cashier says he's like a bartender. Giles says he wants to get to know the cashier better and puts his hand on the cashier's hand. The cashier yells at an African-American couple that they can only do takeout. And that the booths and counters are always reserved. And then tells Giles to go because it's a family establishment, a family restaurant.
I still don't understand what's going on in this scene either.
So he's trying to kind of, I guess, hit on. He is hitting on the cashier.
Well, I mean, that part I got, but I guess from the cashier's point of view.
Yeah, I guess just putting your hand on somebody's hand isn't that, like, explicit, I suppose. But the other stuff does make sense, because he's, like, racist and telling them to get out.
Yeah.
I actually took me a second, because under quarantine or under, stay-at-home orders, you can only do
COVID-teen.
Yeah. You can only do takeout. So I'm like, what? That's not weird. And I was like, oh, wait. This is 50s racism. That was my own fault, though. That's not the movie's fault. Eliza is cleaning the tub when Giles comes home and says that she's the only person he can talk to and that he has no one else. So he will help her because they're friends and they hug.
Mm-hmm.
Dimitri meets with his handlers and is done with their code word BS, which is very funny. He comes up and the guy says it all very like you're supposed to. And he's just like, whatever. Here's the code word. Let's go.
Yeah.
He is told that the USSR does not support his plan, and that they do not have time to break in unless he can wait like a week, which they do not. Instead, they give him a shot to kill him, as well as an Israeli popper that will short out a fuse box. The handler says that they do not care about learning things as long as the Americans do not have them. They win. Which is very telling. Which is literally the exact same thing the Americans believe. In this movie, at least. Strickland buys a teal Cadillac DeVille that looks amazing. 'Cause he is the man of the future and success. While he's driving, some nasty 50s beatniks try to get his attention. Which I think is just to set up that he has a car and is very nice.
Because that's paid off
later. It is paid off later.
His whole car thing.
Eliza finishes cleaning while they feed Abe. She scouts out an exit from Abe's lab to the loading dock, where Strickland parks his car. Meanwhile, Giles paints where, I didn't put this in here, but I guess it's kind of important, where Fleming is being the suck-up. As I will say later, a consummate middle manager. Meanwhile, Giles paints his van up to be a cleaning van. Zelda and company steal company time, rather. They're stealing from the company, they're stealing their time. And she sees Eliza doing something shady. At the apartment, Giles is given the lowdown on the plan as well as shows his badge, which he also says is some of his best work.
He says everything's his best work.
One of the things that we see later, the Fishman stuff, is his best work. Giles says he's proud of her even if she is afraid, and he changes his age to 57 and picks out his outfit and toupee, and that 57 thing is important because if he didn't change it, they probably would have been fine. Well, kind of. We don't actually know, but setting up that he's bad at it. Strickland watches the cameras and sees Eliza. This is the other scene we're talking about. He purposefully spills his drink to get Eliza to come clean it up. Once up there, he says he can't figure out what it is that is so appealing about her, and then sexually harasses her. He says that she can make us like a squawking noise. Eliza freaks out and leaves. I think another reason this movie won is I was hitting kind of all of those like Me Too movement kind of things in this movie.
Yeah.
Was that 2017 now?
Yeah.
I actually don't know. But that's kind of what it's doing.
Yeah. That's just another Oscar bait kind of thing.
Yeah, it's saying that, especially when we get to Green Book, it's saying, I'm not like that anymore. But this is better than what I've at least heard of the Green Book. Because this is really subtle, and Michael Shannon's a good actor.
He's a good actor, but you think it's subtle. I don't think it's as subtle.
I mean, it's not. It is, but it's not.
Yeah, I just feel like, it's being very obvious about the messages it's trying to get across rather than some other movies where you can tell that they're trying to get a message across, but the focus isn't really on the message. I feel like the focus in this movie a lot is on the message.
Which I would not say so much. It is later, but like it's trying to be just that fairy tale love story kind of thing. It's trying. It doesn't always do it. In the bathroom, Hofstadter gets the injection ready. Eliza goes to the changing room and hides. Eliza says she is ready to go home. Eliza pushes the cameras up. Hofstadter goes to Strickland and demands to delay the procedure. Strickland is a dick about protocol while reading The Power of Positive Thinking, which comes back later in how he talks to General Hoyt. Hofstadter says that they need more time. Strickland says that he lost and that they leave and he can settle down. Hofstadter tries to again plead the case that Abe is intelligent and notices the camera move up but doesn't say anything. Strickland says that the commies are also intelligent but they want to kill them. Which is, again, he's talking to a Russian, so it's funny. Which that's more of a for us thing than for them. Eliza dampens towers to take. Eliza asks where Eliza is. Eliza goes to unlock Abe's collar when Hofstadter confronts her. He asks who she's with, which is fun. It kind of reminds me of that in what can I think? Well, when we just did Forrest Gump, where all of those news reporters are trying to get their own spin on what he's doing. It's kind of like, who do you work for? My guess, if I was in that scene, I would say the Canadians, because she's being nice.
Yeah.
Where was I?
I work for myself.
Well, that's what. I mean, she can't talk, which is kind of good, because then there's not a whole bunch of explaining.
Yeah.
Yep. Or you read that. He gives her the key and the container of treatment solution, whatever it is, and says to use salt, table salt, to make the water salient.
Now, what you don't want to do is overfeed your fish. If you overfeed your fish, he's going to grow too big for the tub.
I mean, they solved that problem.
That's a Dr. Seuss thing.
It is. Is it really?
Fish out of water. Fish out of water. The kid gets the little goldfish. It's really tiny, but he tells him only a pinch. And so he ends up overfeeding his fish. And then it keeps growing to where it's bigger than the bathtub. And it's bigger than a swimming pool. And
that reminds me, you have not seen this, but on our blog, I do Hot 100 to look at whatever the newest song I haven't covered in the top Hot 100 are. And one of them is Harry Styles has a song of One Direction. He is no longer with One Direction. I only bring that up because the video for the song is with him where he catches this fish that literally just grows and grows and grows bigger. And then it ends with like a very, again, Free Willy kind of moment where the entire town comes together to help free the fish and bring it back into the ocean.
Yeah. Everybody's got a message about fish.
Well, that one makes more sense. I guess the video makes more sense because they see the fish, like the school of fish on television doing something. It's been a couple weeks. Most of those songs don't stay with me, even if I like them. Zelda clocks Eliza out, which is only important for later. Hofstadter says he'll meet Eliza at the loading dock when the lights go out. Giles drives up to the checkpoint and gives the guard his fake ID. When the lights go out. Sorry, the lights have not gone out yet. When they go out. This is when he sets the timer. Eliza reaches the loading dock, only for Zelda to be there. She says that she's out of her mind. Eliza's out of her mind. This is why I always put names and why it's very tedious sometimes, because I don't want people to be confused. Strickland notices Giles' vehicle and calls down, so that's good. Almost kind of me wishing that the ink didn't come off. The guard hears the phone, but then the ink comes off. Strickland heads down. The guards tell Giles to get out, but he has trouble with the seatbelt because seatbelts weren't really a thing yet. In our conventional sense.
Yeah.
The timer goes off and the lights go out. Hofstadter makes it to the loading dock and asks where they haven't left yet, and Zelda helps Eliza. Hofstadter kills the guard and sends Giles to the dock. Strickland races down. They load Abe into the van, and Giles remarks how he's beautiful. Because I guess he is a very majestic creature.
Yeah.
Hofstadter and Zelda run off so they're not caught. Giles accidentally runs into the Cadillac. And he says he isn't very good at this, which is very true. He is very bad at it. Strickland arrives and shoots at the car, but it escapes. The lights flash on and he looks to see the ruined front end of his brand new vehicle. He then goes to the lab and sees that Abe is gone.
Of course, because nobody was watching him ever.
Yeah, that's the one time where your theory of this doesn't make sense works. But also going back to 2017, I mean, it's hitting on all the hot button issues of the time, which are the same.
Like to have,
which is all the same issues now, but they were more relevant, and it's literally all of the minorities and Hofstadter Dimitri, who is I guess he's not really a minority other than being a nerd. It's all of the minorities, gay people and black people and abled people, taking something away from evil white establishment government. That's what's going on there.
It was a little much.
Again, that's not really a bad thing, I don't think, because it's fine in the movie.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it's, when you really think about it, if it just feels like a little much. Like, okay, I understand what you're trying to say. Like, at this point, an hour and a half in, give or take, I got it. I understand the kind of message you're trying to say.
They get Abe into the bathtub where Eliza pours the solution and salt into the water. Part of that salt contains both the salt shaker and the full container, which is very funny. Guys, after they do that, Guys points out how Eliza's accidentally poured some salt out, and they laugh. And I like that scene because that felt like that ending, especially felt like that was not in the script scene, which is I like. Strickland finds out about the Papas and says that the Russians hate the Jews but love the technology, which I just like that line. Strickland says that they have time to call it in, but Fleming, ever the middle manager that he really and truly is, already called it in, which I like that. That's a good twist. It doesn't really change anything plot-wise, but I like that at least happened. Just as he learns that, his secretary comes in and says Hoyt is on the line for him. Strickland says that he will get the asset back. Eliza goes to the canal where she sees a sign saying how the canal is open to the ocean from October to November, and marks on her calendar that October 10th, in hopes that the rain will come so they can go free.
That's very convenient that it wasn't like, oh, I don't know, a month later,
I don't.
2 months
I mean,
later.
I guess Rainy. I'm only upset that it's only October 10th and not October 7th. That would have been a much better date. Guys, no one else will know why that's funny, but I really like it. Guys brings out a bunch of salt, and Eliza shows Abe a card of a man and a fish, with a fish in a bowl, and says, "Glad to have a friend." And Abe is impressed by that. Which, that's a good acting moment from, again, just imagine that this guy, like, we're all dismissive of it, but, I mean, think about it. Abe is like a guy in a suit. It's not all CG. So that's really impressive. I just want to highlight that because it's probably very easy to dismiss that does, well,
That's like any mocap person too, really.
Yeah.
Nobody ever gives anybody a mocap credit.
No, especially Andy Serkis. He deserves one.
True.
I just found out. You probably knew this. Andy Serkis is going to be Alfred in the Batman movie. I didn't know that.
Yep. I'm excited for that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's totally off topic. That's for another show.
Which is also actually off topic, but got moved today from June to October.
That makes sense. It is Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The next day at work, Zelda says to keep up that look like she doesn't know anything, and that she's bad at it except for in marriage, where, you know, you have to lie in a marriage because that's the basis of a healthy marriage, is lying.
Mm-hmm.
That's never caused any problems in a marriage ever.
No,
I'm
never.
not married, but I've watched television. I know that in television, if you lie about your marriage, nothing bad ever happens.
No, if you lie, you're in trouble.
The
Deep trouble.
whole base is swarming with guards. Fleming tells Strickland that it had to be a huge group of well-organized people. He's like 10 people, which is very good. Because I guess he's thinking, well, you'd have to have someone to make the ID. You'd have to have someone to get the van. He's very... It's kind of twisting that heist thing on its head of you need someone to do every individual thing when you really just got a bunch of people just doing a bunch of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And Strickland looks at Eliza fancifully. Because I think he still is probably pretty smitten with her for some reason.
Yeah, something weird. I don't understand it.
Giles draws Abe and asks if he has always been alone, and says that he doesn't know what happened to him because he only sees his eyes on an old man face. And he says he was born either too early or too late for his life, and that they are relics. So I understand the born too early, but it would have been better to be a gay person even earlier, because I really doubt that.
That's a line stolen from Interstellar.
That's just...
But for different reasons.
I mean, that's a pretty common line. That's not like a line stolen from Interstellar.
Yeah, but I know. But as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, well, yeah, I remember hearing that.
It's like on Interstellar, just because we're on that, when they mentioned what a warp hole is, and me being like, oh, like in that horror movie Event Horizon. It's just very common stuff. It's like one of those things. But saying, you know, him always being alone, they're trying to pair like this bunch of lonely people. Because Eliza's lonely because she can't talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Giles is lonely because he's, you know, a closeted gay guy in the 50s. Zelda's lonely because even though she is married, she's with somebody who doesn't love and appreciate her.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Fishman Abe is sad and lonely because he's possibly the only one of his kind.
Poor Fishman.
And I guess Hofstetler / Dimitri's lonely because he's the only one who cares about the fish, who's like a government employee.
I guess.
Who's a science government employee. Technically, Eliza and Zelda are government employees.
Mm-hmm.
Zelda and Eliza are brought to Strickland's office where they are interrogated about what happened. And they do lots of good kind of like wordplay stuff about how he's insulting their intelligence. They say that they don't know anything, and before leaving, Eliza signs F you, but covers up by saying thank you. And because I know finger spelling, that's the only sign language I know, I knew what she was saying before they did that, and I was very happy. Before they didn't literally spell it out. Does she actually go thank you, or does she do underneath the chin, which is also FU?
I wasn't sure, but that's what I was thinking when I first saw it.
I watched it twice. I couldn't tell because it's all very quick. Strickland gets mad that he is interviewing The Help, obviously, which fun. Octavia Spencer was also in The Help.
And I didn't even think about that, but that's clever.
Doing something, and asks if Hofstadter is doing anything different in the lab, because he's like, have you seen Hofstadter go to the lab? And they're like, he's a scientist. What else would you be doing?
No. Never seen him in the lab.
And in the scene behind them, because he has, the stairwell going up to his window, up to his office.
Mm-hmm.
Behind him, there's a couple, two women, a white and a two women, one white, one black. That's they also are having a fun story, I'm sure, because they're an exact copy of the pair that we have in this movie. Which I'm sure is just coincidence, but I just had that thought. Abe sneaks out when Giles falls asleep. He walks around the apartment and sees the pictures of himself that Giles drew, and on TV a talking horse, which is the best shot in the movie, and you might be thinking why. Well, that horse is showing that, hey, look, we can empathize with a non-human creature that can talk. Shouldn't we be able to empathize with a humanoid creature that can't talk? That's what that scene is doing.
That makes sense.
And that's the best use of it, because you won't even think about it, because it's just 50s television show. And it's been showing that all along. He gets into a hissing match with a cat. Giles wakes up and sees Abe snacking on his cat. Which is, horrifying, I'm sure. Abe, is scared, cuts Giles, and runs. Eliza and Zelda finish cleaning and are about ready to go home, and Hofstadter comes into the locker room because there's no cameras, because it's women's locker room, and gives more solution, as well as his phone number in case anything happens. Speaking of... Oh my gosh, I don't even drink soda yet, I'm still so burpy. Speaking of emergencies, Eliza gets a call. Eliza races home to see Giles. He says he's fine, but Abe ate Pandora. I'm sure that's a reference to either to Hellboy or to Pan's Labyrinth, one of those things. Because that's a very odd name to give. That's so specific. And she goes to find him. She goes downstairs where she sees large bloody handprints leading into the theater where the story of Ruth is playing. Which I don't know anything about that, but I'm sure that's important. And I don't think it won best.
Yeah, I didn't get that reference.
And I don't think it's winning. I don't think it won Best Picture, so I don't think we'll be watching it. Maybe it might be nominated, and we'll get to it eventually. Eliza goes to him and feels his chest. I guess just to say, "Are you okay?" Calm him down, I guess. Upstairs, Giles explains how he tried to stay awake, while Eliza addresses his wounds. Abe plays with the other kittens. Which I, of course, guys would be freaked out because, you just ate one of my cats. So he says not to play with them. And Giles and Abe place their hands on their heads. And he does a glowy thing. Abe does. Abe then places his hands on Giles' arm and does another glowy thing. And Giles says that he's an interesting guy and how that cannot be sanitary. Which is a funny line. The guy who plays Giles is very good.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, the cast is good. I do have a problem. Well, I don't have a problem. We can talk about it when we get to it. But I do have kind of a problem of who they cast as Eliza. It's one of those. It's one of those questions. Yeah. Hofstadter goes, because I'll get to that scene when it's actually relevant. Okay. Goes to see Strickland. Strickland says that they have a promising lead and has his candy. Hofstadter says that he gave up a 10-year track to work for them. Strickland says that he's getting ready to leave. That Hofstadter is going to leave if the creature is not found. And he asks if Hofstadter knows where it is. And there's very ominous of well, you have a lead, don't you? You have said you have a promising lead.
Well, I knew where this was going.
Yeah. And they don't even know he's Russian. They just think he's, a bleeding heart liberal caring for fish people.
Mm-hmm.
Give America back to humans, not fish people. That is what Strickland believes in.
Yep.
And that you only need 3 fingers to be able to survive in this world.
I don't know about that, but we'll give him that.
I mean, in his current situation. He says he has his trigger finger, but if you try to hold a gun with 3 fingers, I'd imagine it'd be very difficult to shoot a gun.
I wonder if he shot that gun earlier with that hand. I can't remember.
I don't think so. But, that would have been a good thing for me to look at if I watched a movie.
I didn't even think about it.
Anyway. Eliza and Abe bond while Abe is in the bath. Abe sees her scars and she freaks out and leaves. She sits with her clock and is about to set it. She then tries to go to bed but decides against it. She goes to the bathroom, disrobes, and lays with the fish man.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's what happens, but
yeah.
Eliza thinks about it on her commute to work as she sees rain droplets begin to fall. The rain dances along the window until it transitions to her and Eliza walking down the hallway, which is actually impressive and cool. Well, Eliza said, she doesn't even say or sign. She just kind of does facial stuff, like, implying, and Zelda figures it out. And Eliza explains how Abe is not just a Ken doll.
Well, okay, so that never made any sense to me, because anybody in their right mind wouldn't just be like, oh, wow, you actually did that? How? Like, I understand that that Zelda's her friend, but anybody in their right mind that was told that you just had sex with a creature like that would not act as nonchalant about it.
Shane, have you ever been on the internet before?
Yes.
Do you not know that there's literally, probably, maybe, literally millions of people who want to be that want to be animals and do that?
Yeah, but, okay, so this is in the 50s.
Yeah, but it's made today. It's made today.
But this is in the 50s, and even if it's made today, there's no way that somebody would just act that nonchalant about that.
You're right. I was just joking with you.
I just thought that was like her reaction to Zelda's reaction to it. I was just like, okay, I'm not on board with this. Not that I can't say that I don't approve of it, but I can't approve with the way that people are reacting about it. Like they just blow it off as if it's nothing.
Yeah, that especially happens later. But how there was this great Futurama episode where the main character Fry falls in love with a mermaid, and the joke of that is they're about to have sex, and she reveals that she just lays eggs. This might be assuming too much, but when the Abe fish people also do that?
Probably.
That's just a thought. So that his downstairs would not have been made for that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That literally does not matter.
I just had a problem with once she starts to like actually develop a relationship, that kind of relationship with him. I was kind of not on board. Not that I don't agree with it, because I don't care. If that's how it is, then that's how it is. But just because I felt like that was the point where it just took what it was trying to say too far. I guess with how it handled the situation, how everybody's just kind of like, oh yeah, good for you. Good job.
Yeah,
congratulations.
It's trying to put being gay on the same level as wanting to be with a fish person. That's what's
totally
which
different.
Is different. I mean, okay, Shane. When the fish people rise up and they hear this, do you think they'll think we're racist? Specious?
Probably. And that's not what I'm trying to say either.
As whatever goes on in your own bed is fine. I just don't want my kids to be exposed to it. That's all.
I just don't understand how I guess in the context of this movie, how somebody, especially if it's set in the 50s, a time before internet and stuff like that, how somebody would just be like, oh, no way, you did that with that weird fish creature that we just saved? How? Really? Wow, that's impressive.
Dimitri irons his pants when his handler arrives with extraction papers. I'm just kidding. We could be on this forever. I want to keep going. We got another show to record. Dimitri notices a gun. He asks if they want cake, and one guy does. The fat guy. Well, yeah, he is kind of fat guy. It's not the fat guy from the beginning of the movie. That would be... You know what? That would be clever.
Mm-hmm.
That also doesn't matter. He gets a slice of cake and hides a knife up his sleeve. The handler asks what they did with the body and after they killing the asset, and he says he did an autopsy and quotes Lenin about how last week's fish doesn't help. They have a good laugh, and the guy says the cake is great. The handler says he's misremembering something. I guess it's the quote. And says to wait for their call because it'll be soon. Strickland watches TV with his family. In this scene, a character mentions going to study in South America. Which I just noticed because that's where they got Abe from.
Yeah.
Elaine brings in a gelatin parfait. That looks exactly, by the way, like what Giles drew.
Mm-hmm.
It's bringing things together that aren't important, but nice details. Strickland goes to his car in the rain where he smells that his fingers are dead. And he pulls one and some pus comes out.
Ew.
Eliza fills the tub. She looks at Abe and Phil starts filling the sink. And this is like where the kind of fantastical nature is taken to its absolute extreme.
Yeah, because if I hadn't jumped off this wagon earlier with Zelda's reaction to the whole sex thing, then it was this time where I jumped off.
She blocks the door and signs that they will be together. She disrobes again and they embrace. Meanwhile, the water leaks down into the theater, ruining the audience's experience. Boy, I've had some bad experiences, but if my experience was, I got rained on while I was inside, that would be the worst of it. But to be fair, one guy is sleeping, so, screw them all, I guess.
Yeah.
The water reaches their waist, which would be physically impossible. But it's fine.
Yeah. Let alone any... Yeah.
It's impossible, but it's fine. Giles goes to deal with the manager when he sees that he actually has hair that has grown back. And the cut on his arm is gone.
I was more interested in that than, the last third of this movie.
He sees water pouring out of Eliza's door. Giles says that he'll deal with the busted pipe he thinks it is. Inside the bathroom has reached the ceiling, which is actually impossible. If it was not impossible to go up to the waist.
I'm pretty sure that whole floor would have fell out if not
the water
actually leaked through the door.
The water damage alone, man.
Yeah.
Eliza swims down and they embrace. Giles enters and sees the door that is leaking, which is an understatement for what was going on. He opens it and the water ruptures out. Inside, he sees them hugging and closes the door to give them a moment. Yeah. Giles laughs about his... I like how he's laughing about the hair and the fact that his wound is gone. And
and completely dismisses this whole relationship thing that's going on. Oh yeah, you're filling up your whole entire bathroom with water and doing things with this creature. That's fine. Hey, look at my hair.
I mean, I would also be pretty impressed if a magical sea human put his hand on my head and my hair grew back. I'd also be very impressed.
I mean, I'd be impressed, but let's not forget about what you just witnessed.
Oh yeah, my neighbor's just that wacky neighbor who likes fish people. You know the deal.
Yeah,
Fleming watches Hofstadler's house. Dimitri, because of the same person, gets a call saying that his extraction will be at the same location in 2 days, which for drama will also be the 10th. And he sees Fleming
Yay.
watching the house.
That's convenient.
I mean, it is, but that's a very movie thing to do. That's one of those
Yeah.
all movies would do this kind of thing. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Eliza checks on the canal. Giles finishes his painting of Abe and Eliza, which is the best thing he's ever done. Meanwhile, next door, Abe watches the rain fall. Eliza feels him and sees that his scales are coming off. He lays down and he can hear how rough his breathing and heartbeat has gotten. So something's happening to him, and I don't know why.
Which is never explained.
Yeah, which I don't know why. It's just more of a ticking clock.
Yeah, because Zelda comes over and looks at it, and it's just like, oh, this isn't good. Okay, but why? What does this mean?
Well, we don't act. So that's one of those things where we're not told, but the characters also don't know. Because for plot reasons, they don't actually find out. So that's one of those.
Well,
like,
it might not necessarily mean something bad, because I was like, okay, maybe he's just molting.
Yeah, which is probably maybe what I thought was happening, shedding his skin. Strickland gets water and tells his secretary to say that he's not here to Hoyt, only to see him standing in his office. Hoyt says that they want the asset, and Strickland says that failing once does not make him a failure, and this scene is good. And how long does he have to prove that he's a decent man? And Hoyt says a decent man doesn't F up. Which is very funny. Hoyt says everything will be over on the 10th. He says 36 hours, but again, for drama, it's also going to be on October 10th. And that if he fails, Strickland will be removed from this world, and there's a space, like a hole in space where he was, setting up what the movie is about in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
And Strickland downs all of his pills and sees that his fingers are like actually black, and says he has 36 hours to deliver. And because this is like secret government science, I like the idea that it could both be he's just going to disappear, or he's literally going to be erased from space and time, because it's one of those kind of movies.
I'm still caught up on, if he took all those pills, he would have probably died.
Well, I don't think it's literally all of them, but it's easier to say.
Oh, I mean, enough that he would have not been, like, standing up straight.
That's true. Well, he is told that he looks bad, so that's the hand wave. Because I could not write, he took most of. That doesn't sound as good as he took all of them. It is the 9th.
Well, he tried to take them all.
It's the 9th/10th. I'm not sure how her calendar works. Because you'd think you tear it off for the day, but when you're on the back of it, is like a saying. Which is important in a second. So I don't know if like you tear it off because that's the day it is, or because I'm very.
Maybe. I think you tear it off because that's the day it is.
Because on my calendar, which by the way is a Marvel calendar that I got for free for Marvel 2020, which is very cool looking. I just cross off the day when it's done. Like, cool. It was Sunday yesterday. Cross off Sunday.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think she does it backwards.
Eliza sits down with Abe to eat. She reads that thought on the back says that life is but the shipwreck of our plans, which is very important. Because that's, again, also kind of what the movie's about.
Yeah, in case you didn't know at this point.
Eliza signs and tries to say that Abe will never know how much she loves Errol Chaos, because we set that up earlier. And then that saying becomes her imagining she is singing and dancing with him in this amazing transition. That goes, because, like, you can be dismissive, but also, which I don't think you are, but think about it, it goes from, like that just stark lighting to black and white to her on the stage. And I'm like, that's impressive.
Well, I had no issue with the directing in this movie. The directing's great in this movie. And I'm okay with that transition and everything.
Almost like he could have won Best Director, but not Best Picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah, singing and dancing and the transitions back to her. So, here's a question. Is it a problem that the actress who plays Eliza is not a deaf person?
Oh, now you're getting into too much politics. But she's not deaf. She's mute. So would you have to hire an actual mute person?
Yeah, that's the that's the problem, right? So that's that kind of like whole of, you know, you the person. Because I guess for this scene, it would make sense because you want to have her singing, but also you could just dub her over. It's not that big a deal. Because it's all imaginary anyway. But also, once whoever the actress is, because I can't remember now.
Sally
Hawkins.
Who also stars in Godzilla and King of the Monsters.
That's cool.
She also dies in King of the Monsters.
That's unfortunate. But, see, shouldn't they have hired, like, didn't she steal a job? Well, you say that, but you don't know if an actual, deaf or mute person was actually up for the job. But that's kind of the argument, is that you could have had somebody there who was actually signed ASL and...
And see, I don't want to get into it too much because that could be a whole video and it's separate, but people make a big deal out of that all the time. Just, to me, it doesn't matter unless there's a specific reason why that, like... That's like trying to say Black Panther being played by a white guy. That doesn't make sense because that's not part of the, lore of that character.
But he could have been, why am I blanking on the word now? Well, you're just like all white.
Well, yeah, I just think
he could have been albino.
Just get a good actor to play the role that you want.
What makes...
I mean, it's the movies.
What makes this... The only reason I thought about this is on our blog, I review the TV show Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, mostly because I love Jane Levy. Literally mostly. Mm. But in one episode, it had an actual deaf person, and they did, because in the show, she hears people's heart songs, which are like musical numbers. And they have one where a character is deaf or uses ASL, and they do like an entire musical number where she signs the whole time with no lyrics. I'm like, that's amazing, and you could have done this here.
Well, I mean, I can see it, like, I see the potential of things that you can do if you try to appease to everything in every single movie, but then it gets to the point where if you appease to every single thing, like every single character and all that in every movie, then you're not going to be making movies for the fun of making movies and the enjoyment of it. You're going to be just making something that makes every single person in the world happy.
Again, it's not actually a problem. That was just a thought I had of, should they have hired an actual... Like, that was just a thought I had.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. I feel like you probably could have.
Should they have hired a real person with who is not neurotypical to play Forrest Gump? You could have gone to that whole thing, right?
It's true, too. Every single movie you can find somebody like that.
Zelda and Eliza finish work. Zelda hears, quote-unquote, Eliza crying and sits with her. She goes back to the apartment where she sees that he's bleeding from the mouth and shedding. So it is a little more worse than that. Mm-hmm. She goes and Zelda says she'll go and call Hofstadler and says that he does need to be released tonight. Zelda tries to call Hofstadler, who closes the door just as the phone rings, for drama. Strickland sees him leave, and he tries to open his pills, and then kicks Fleming out of his own vehicle, while Fleming says that his fingers stink. Yeah, again, Fleming, ever the middle manager he is. Because otherwise you'd be like, no, it's my car. You're the one who's literally the only one who's going to be in trouble if you fail this.
Yeah.
Dimitri arrives at the sand plant. I don't actually know what the plant is, but the sand. I guess it's like a place where people pick up sand to drive to places. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. I just couldn't figure out what on earth where that was. He tries to make conversation only to be shot in the mouth by his handler. He is almost killed until Strickland kills both his handlers, goes to Dimitri. And he's like, you're speaking Russian. You're speaking Russian.
But I'm not Russian.
You're speaking Russian, Bob. Like, he calls him very, like, Bob. Like, with a lot of vile in that word. Like, a lot of, I hate you right now. He then pulls Dimitri by the hole in his mouth, which is just the most painful thing. To a sand pile, he asks what his real name is and says that he is dying. He wants information on the strike team. He takes out his piece of candy that he loves and is cheap. And he says how some people like nougat and other foo-foo shit, which I just wanted to write because I like that line. but he likes to take whatever his candy is. He likes to either he can make it last or he can like bite right to it.
Which makes clever use.
Yeah, because that's he's talking about torture in the scene. So I imagine it's like one of those like puffy mints, where sometimes you can chew it or you can just like let it melt in your mouth. But can't have nougat in it because that's for foo-foo people. That's for dirty beatniks. He then tortures Dimitri, who only says that the strike team were people who just clean. They just clean. I don't know how he automatically assumes that it is Zelda and Eliza, but he figures that out.
Because he just knows. He's smart like that.
Or it could be that he went to the other people and didn't know, but for drama, he just knows.
Yeah.
There's this problem with this scene that we're about to get into that I feel is more a problem cutting for time than it was actually like Anyway, Zelda finishes dinner and says she's going out when there's a knock at the door, and Zelda says that Booster could go get it, but that his back is aching him. And this is the first time we've actually seen this guy. We've heard about him, but shouldn't we have seen him earlier?
Probably, at least once.
But there also would have been a scene that would have necessitated seeing him for the plot. But then you also shouldn't have seen him now. I could see arguments for that. She answers the door only for Strickland to burst in. He asks where the asset is. And corners her. And this is the scene where I noticed that Del Toro uses too much like middle shot. Like, what is it called? Like, not long distance, but like kind of like middle. A lot of like standard, like kind of not close up. I'm blanking on the term for it.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head.
I feel really bad because we both took film courses and now it's blanking on me.
It's been a while.
Yeah, but I also watched a lot of videos about film and I still can't remember what the name of the shot. It's like a lot of like still pseudo close up, but it's like above the waist basically. He uses those a lot. And this is the scene where I noticed it because we cut away for him to come in and like to burst in. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I woke up for a second. I say that again like it's a bad thing with the movie. It's not.
Yeah.
Booster stands up, so his back wasn't killing him that much. He was just lazy. For a second, only to be yelled at to sit down. See? Oh, he was tired. I made this joke a lot with you. He was just tired, so they let him sit down again. Which, there's a big problem in the Star Wars prequels. They're always so tired because they sit down a lot. Which I could believe for Christopher Lee because he was, like in his 70s.
He probably sat down the least amount.
Good on him. Not like Hayden Christensen, who's young and sprightly, but always sat down. We're way off topic, and we're almost... Well, okay, we're not. I thought we were actually close to the movie length. But we're over an hour and a half in.
We're almost done.
Yeah, we're almost done. Zelda lies about what she knows. Strickland finishes the story about how Samson was tortured, but got his strength back when he prayed to God, and he then wrecked the Philistines. As he tells the story, he tears off his own dead fingers from his hand and then just throws them on the carpet. He says Samson dies, but so does everyone else. He asked what that means for them, and Strickland says that if she does not say, he is going to wreck the entire house. Booster says that it is Eliza, and that he heard Zelda talking about it on the phone, which is, I guess, when we probably should have seen him. And this is a scene where I'm like, okay, so the fingers mean something, and so does that, like, a biblical analogy, but I can't figure out what it is.
Yeah, if it's anything, it's just deeper than, like, you have to know you either have to research it or have really good in-depth knowledge on that to really understand it.
Yeah, I don't, like, it's saying something, but I can't figure out what it is. Which makes me almost think it's clever, but not knowing it doesn't mean the same thing.
It means you're having to put in more work to understand it.
Yeah. It means it could still be clever once you know it, but I just don't know it. It's not like the rock thing from Parasite. Or the title Parasite.
That too.
Zelda warns Eliza that Strickland is coming for Abe. Strickland rushes to the theater, but goes to see that both her, Abe, and Giles are long gone. and he sees the bathtub with all the solution in it. Meanwhile, the trio get to the canal. Strickland tears the house apart until he sees the note on the calendar, which you would say is convenient, but she wouldn't know to tear that off. She wouldn't think to do that, I don't think.
Mm-hmm.
The trio walk to the canal. Giles says his goodbye by placing his hand on like the forehead, doing that thing again, and then walks away. Zelda walks away. Zelda, no. Eliza, that was my bad, walks away, but turns to see Abe sign them together. Eliza says that she has to go. Strickland arrives and punches Giles, then shoots Abe in the chest. He falls, and then he shoots Eliza, who also falls over. She turns to see Abe, and they hold hands for a second. Strickland says that delivers. He does that. He does not fail. Giles then smacks him in the face with a piece of wood, and then goes to check on Eliza, who is dead. I am pretty sure is what that is saying, or she is completely passed out.
I was thinking dead.
Abe awakens back to life. He stands and glows up, like he stands and then glows. And he wipes the bullet holes away, which is really cool. In the rain, like he just wipes it away, and it's just like blood, and it's fine. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Strickland empties his gun to load more bullets and sees Abe and calls him a god. And Abe cuts Strickland's neck. He goes back to Giles and Eliza. The police and Zelda show up. Abe jumps in the water with Eliza while Zelda and Giles watch. Eliza drifts lifelessly while Abe swims around her. He goes up and to her and sees the scars on her neck. He places his hands on her, like on the back of her neck, on her, and like kisses her. Eliza is brought back to life, with her scars becoming gills, and she's amazed. Which that's a very weird scene. But I guess the other way you could have taken it is he heals her voice box and she can talk, and then it's kind of the movie's kind of saying that if you can't speak, that's a bad thing. So that's the other way it could have gone, which is very against what the movie is saying.
I just wasn't a fan.
In ending narration, Giles repeats the questions of what he would say. He asks if he would say that they lived happily ever after, and he says they think they did. He also says that they were in love and remained in love, and how that is true. Or I guess he hopes that's true. He says that's true, but I think it's more of a hope. Mm-hmm. He says that he thinks of Eliza. He thinks about Eliza in this poem by Hakim Sinai, which I actually did research on this poem, which is, I'll read it and then you'll be very obvious about what it's about, because there's actually like a lot of debate. I actually had to read like a professional peer-reviewed article about it, which I have not done since I had to do research papers, and I felt very smart. By Hakim Sinai, where it's like, unable to perceive the shape of you, I find you all around me. Your presence fills my eyes with your love. It humbles my heart for you. For you are everywhere. Obviously, I'm not good at reading. Because
you're good.
Because he does it way better. And it is about, in actual context, the poem is about Allah. It's about God. But it's also about this kind of idea. I wonder if after this movie came out, people who are getting married had this read at their like ceremonies and stuff.
Well, I guess it depends on how many people actually watched it.
That's true. But, I mean, I guess it's like breaking up the cliche of, love is patient, love is kind. It's breaking up that cliche. Anyway, he says that main title comes on screen and credits roll. And it's a pretty good movie. Because again, as someone who hates literally all of the tropes it's built on, I really like it.
It's a good movie, and I know it's a good movie as far as directing and music, acting, all that stuff. Everything that you would assume would make a good movie, it does well.
I made jokes about it, but I mean, it's still problems, but they're not like actual. Like, the problems, but then they do not break the movie.
No, it's a good movie that just doesn't work for me. It's got issues that I think are just too. I don't know. It feels like it's trying to be too much. Like there's a lot of things that they could have done without having to make feel so. I don't want to say forced, but hit you over the head. But there were a lot of things in this movie where I was like, okay, I understand what you're trying to say. I'm not that incompetent that I don't know what's going
But
on.
do
you could do with a little less like.
Do you get that the
know.
gills on her neck also set up that she cannot, like, is setting them up by using images in the film? Do you get that? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's not bad, but it's also, it skirts that line a little bit.
It's just, yeah.
Between being obvious, but also kind of being like, well, you are in a visual medium.
Well, it just seems like it's trying too hard, I think is the problem. Mm-hmm. It's trying too hard to be an Oscar-winning movie, which it's hard to say against it because it actually did win it, but I think it's trying too hard to actually be as good as they want it to be, where if they wouldn't have tried as hard, I think it would have been a better movie in the end. It's like, even looking back at most of the other Oscar-winning movies, or Oscar-nominated movies that year, of the ones that I've seen, I would say that they're not necessarily trying so hard to be an Oscar-winning movie, but rather just trying to be a really good movie. And that's why I enjoyed them a little bit more.
Maybe. Anyway, what's going on back there?
That would be the dog.
Yeah, I mean, there's some movies, especially ones that I know we haven't seen yet, but I've heard just things about them that are bad, and like I'm knocking on Green Book. I haven't seen it. Maybe I'll like it. That's a possibility. But I've just heard not good things about it, so I think it's maybe like better than that, but it's still.
Well, and I don't want to say that this is a bad movie, because it's not. In my review, I said that it's worthy of being nominated, but I just didn't ever see it as being a winning movie. Like one that deserved a win, because I just feel like it's trying too hard to be extra. That's what it is it's trying to be extra Oscar bait type movie. Anytime it can try to just put something in there to try to make a point that it's trying to send a message, because there's a lot of messages it's trying to send in this movie, it tries to do as much as possible to make sure that you understand that it's trying to send a message. And it just, at times, it just feels like, okay, there's a good movie in here if you would just stop trying so hard with the message aspect and just give me a good movie with this story.
Here's a question that I don't know if is reaching or not. Strickland's kids watch Mr. Magoo. That's the cartoon that's on television, which you don't know what Mr. Magoo is, and I barely do. But I know enough to know that the comedy is that he is like basically about like he's one step below blind, and so that gets into a lot of hijinks. Is it too much of a stretch to say that his kids, and by extension Strickland, are also very blind to what is going on? Is that a stretch? Am I stretching way too far with that?
I mean, I guess it depends on how far you looked into it. If we were watching this every week for 52 weeks, then we could go down that hole.
Oh, anyway, yeah. Speaking of, we'll have to do that. Okay, should we do the Wheel of Morality?
Yep. Let's pick our next movie for next week.
I'm going to hit it. You have to do that Foley again, that good Foley. That was way shorter than last time. Thanks.
It was a little quicker.
Okay, so we have The Greatest Show on Earth in 1952, our oldest movie to date.
And I definitely haven't seen it.
I have not seen it. Oh, this is interesting. I'm doing some research. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, Shane. So one, it has a Rotten Tomatoes, which there's of course problems with Rotten Tomatoes that we know about. But it has a, come on, where is it? I literally just saw it. It has, what is that, like a 50 something on Rotten Tomatoes?
Jeez.
And oh, look at this. One of the worst films, regarded as one of the worst films to win. That's going to be fun.
Well, it's going to be an interesting watch then.
Yeah, so like, comment, subscribe, follow us on YouTube here at Tower City Media.
And you can send us an email at towercitymedia@gmail.com.
As well as in all of the social media places and our website, towercitymedia.com. We will see you guys next time.